Hi everyone, it's Amanda. How are you all doing? It's the 19th of November 2018 and it's nice to be back talking to you. I'm entitling this video Coffee and a Cuppa because I've been offline for a while, and last week in particular I just needed to take time out to recover from jet lag. A combination actually of jet lag, flying back from America and integrating the huge download of energy from 11/11, which, I mean, I've been on this path a while now, I've been doing the work a while, and it was definitely the biggest portal that we walked through. It was huge. And you know, over the years, there's a teacher of mine who always used to say to me, particularly with regard to Metatron, that before you could go on to teach or share anything, you first had to download it into your body before sharing it with others. And I have always sort of circumnavigated that a little bit because it never felt 100% true. And what I mean by that is that I know that Metatron is this energy that just can touch anybody, whether they are attuned or not, whether they've been to any course or not, whether they know me or any other Metatron teacher or healer out there or not. And that still is true. Having said that, this 11/11 energy that came through, the only way I can describe it is via what my old teacher used to say to me, because my body had a complete reaction to the energy of that 11/11 portal, and it's taken a week to literally integrate it, anchor it, having shared it and having birthed it with 50 amazing people in Brooklyn. So I'm sort of ready now to talk a little bit about it, and we'll see what we're going to do on this video, because it might be a separate video where I talk about that. I'm not sure, because let me just show you my notebook. So over the last week, just because you're on a rest, of course, there's still stuff going on, isn't there, the whole time. So I've just jotted down pages of notes. And at the moment I've got 9 points here, which I wanted to talk about today, which is why I'm calling this Coffee and a Chat. So we'll see which ones we get through, okay? The first thing I want to say is just welcoming in the energy, and I'm smelling my wrists, not because I've gone bizarre, but because I have been sent this most amazing little oil. And look, I love details. I just love details. Look at this. Someone sent me this little anointing oil, and it's got a little crystal on top. I mean, how cute is that? I just love that. I just unwrapped this. This is from a lady called Teresa Mayville, who also makes the most beautiful malas. I'll show you those in a moment. But I just wanted to share this oil. It's, where have I put the piece of paper? Just unwrapped it. I think it's Nag Champa anointing oil. Honestly, the smell of this is divine. Absolutely divine. It's helping to get me back in the zone, as they say. I will just, as I've mentioned, Teresa, I'm just going to show the malas. She sent me these as a gift. I mean, look at these. Look at these, guys. That one. That one. The colours on that, isn't that beautiful? And this beautiful mala as well. Now that, when I unwrapped them all, this was the first one I put on because it's sort of my colours. Pale blues, pinks, quite girly. But the one that I've actually been wearing, which is also from her, for the past week, has been this one, and it's a really grounding, there are grounding stones in it, as well as amethyst. And I'll put her link anyway below on the description box, so if you can check out her work. But they're just made with such love. I could really feel the love when I unpacked this, and I just thought, wow, love it. So thank you, Teresa. Let's now flow into point one, and I'm going to try and do this in some sort of chronological order, although no, it probably isn't going to work, is it? So let's just think about what's happened. So when I left you last, I had done the Princess Diana video, hadn't I? And I will just do a little bit of housekeeping at this point because it's quite an important point I want to say. I think I looked last night, and I think the Princess Di videos had about 120,000 views, which is a lot for me, more than I would normally get on a typical video. So what that means is when videos go over the 100,000 mark, I've noticed, well, before that, to be honest, of course, what's happening is that your energy is opening up to people that haven't stumbled upon you before. And all I will say is that I have removed and blocked a lot of people who basically found that video and hurled a lot of either fundamentalist Christian bigotry at me, or just abuse in terms of being a charlatan, fraud, etc. Tell you what, I had never appreciated quite the flack that mediums get. I've never classed myself as a medium. When Steve, like the Steve Judd video I did, described me as one, I was a bit sort of taken aback because I've never trained as a medium. I don't regard myself as one, although I'm somebody that can channel, obviously, the other side of the veil. So I guess in some ways that label can stick. But there are a lot of mediums out there who do mediumship work day in, day out. And I tell you what, guys, hats off to you, because the flack that comes with that title still in 2018 is just extraordinary. So guidance from Metatron on this is that, particularly those of you that follow me a lot and are very loyal to me, and thank you so much for being so, don't try and get into discussions with people when you see abuse on my page. It isn't worth your energy, and some of you have tried to do that, and it's very self-defeating, because a lot of the people that post a lot of abuse, they don't want to go into a conversation with you. They're just trying to bring the energy down on the page. So I'd much prefer that those of you that follow me and support me, if you want to obviously talk to others who are making comments, why don't you just look out for the people that are struggling? And, you know, from time to time you see comments and people are really struggling. And I think as a community, our energy is much better spent helping those people, okay? Even if it's just a sort of hi, sending love, anything like that. Don't get into trying to defend your space, because it's not needed. I have learnt a lot over the past year in terms of YouTube, and I've now got a very in a policy that I enforce, which is that if you're going to come into my house and my energetic space, which is what my channel is, and just throw abuse at me or anybody else, you're going to be shown the door. So it's just a zero tolerance policy now, I'm afraid, because what we're trying to do here is create a portal of positivity and light. And I tell you what, we are succeeding. You know, we're doing really well with that. And it should be a place where people can come and feel safe and feel the love rather than the hate. So going forward, I've got somebody in mind, Marina. She doesn't know yet, but she's going to be policing this for me a little bit as well, because it's a bit like the Wild West. The internet does need policing. So that being said, thank you for all the new people that did find me via the Diana video and who have stayed. Welcome. It's lovely to have you. I will be doing another Princess Diana video at some point, not this week, because there are other priorities this week, but definitely there will be a second one coming up on that. And again, when I channel people like Diana or any other celebrity, let's put it that way, George Michael is probably in the works in a few months' time. His energy isn't close enough to me yet to be able to do it, but I feel him hovering. Oh, okay, he's checking me out is what I'm being told. Fair enough, George, that's all right. But seriously, when I bring people through like that, it isn't intended as a gossip session, okay? It's intended as what do they want to help us with regard to our ascension path, okay? What were the beautiful qualities that they had in life that we can still learn from, and what do they wish to share now, rather than being gossipy, particularly the Princess Di stuff, you know. She's really not interested in talking about, you know, Meghan's dress or anything like that. So I'm preaching to the converted here, I know. So that's point one, housekeeping. Diana, don't feed the trolls, ignore them. They will be removed from the page. It's as simple as that. Because there were so many with that particular video, it did get to the point, to be honest, where I just deleted a whole load of messages that had come through on the spam folder because I just didn't want to read all of them. So apologies if, you know, something's been deleted that actually was really good. That would have been a mistake, but otherwise we are keeping our space energetically clear so that we all can heal and feel the love from what we're trying to do here. Point number two, in no particular order. Yeah, I had an amazing experience flying back from America because I sat one seat away from Bob Geldolf. And I think most people know who Bob Geldolf is. Live Aid, if you don't, just Google him. I would call him a humanitarian. Although he is also a pop star, never particularly my genre, have to be honest, although his classic song, I Don't Like Mondays, is pretty good. But that isn't what I'm wanting to talk about with Bob. It was I learnt a lot from being in his space. And it was a bit of a journey because what happened is when he strolled in to the airport and I saw him, I thought, my God, that's Bob Geldolf. And I went into a bit of sort of like awe because he's a bit of a hero of mine. And then I thought, oh, maybe I need to go up and say hello. You know, maybe there's a link here with Metatron. Maybe I'm supposed to do something. Emphasis on do, you know. I was sitting there completely and utterly exhausted, okay, about to fly back. So the thought of doing anything wasn't particularly appealing, I have to be honest. But I thought, I wonder what I'm supposed to do. What, you know, Metatron, Bob Geldolf, is something going on here. Anyway, I decided I was too tired to do anything, so I just let it go. I thought, he doesn't need somebody coming up asking for a photograph or an autograph. How many times will that have happened in his life? He just wants to be left alone. I'll leave him alone. And then we got onto the plane, and it so turned out, as I say, he was sitting one seat apart from me, which I thought was interesting as well. So I still didn't say anything to him for the whole 6 hours. But looking back on it, what that was all about was telepathic, energetic transmission. I learnt so much from not saying anything, because what I didn't do was invade his personal space or invade his personal energy, because that's a complete no-no. You don't do that if you are an intuitive. You respect people's boundaries. But what I was picking up on was what was in his collective field, as it were. You know, we all have a collective field within our aura that is pretty easily readable. You know, it's the thing that if you walk into a room and somebody's in a bad temper, you can see it. You know, it's pretty crystal clear. And so what I was picking up from him more than anything else was a few things, and I've noted them down here. How many times have I mentioned on previous videos about being a spiritual warrior, about the rise of the divine masculine, and in particular, where are the men? Okay, where are the male spiritual warriors? Well, one thing that happened with this 1111 portal was the doors flew wide open, and I'm actually seeing a stampede of men of all ages that went through the 1111 portal. Now, Bob was already through it, okay? He's been a cheerleader and a way shower for decades, doing the work that he did. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, Metatron has put me here for 6 hours, sitting beside this man who is one of the leading examples of being a masculine spiritual warrior on this planet. You've asked Amanda, what does that look like? Sat right beside you. Just feel into the energy of that. And I also quite liked, what it also reminded me about was that as spiritual warriors, we're not asked to be perfect. We're not asked to be flawless. We're also not asked to be somebody that has to sacrifice everything and put on the hair shirt and, you know, whip ourselves on the back, as would have been done in days of old when you had to sacrifice to prove yourself in spiritual terms. You would have had to have done penance, basically, to have proven your duty and your devotion to God. Not anymore. The spiritual warrior doesn't have to do that. They don't have to sacrifice anything. One of the things that's often flung at Bob as an insult is that he's got lots of money. He's got lots of money, but yet he's trying to raise money for places like Africa and other places around the world, and has done so. Not perfect, no. Not all of the money went through, no. But he's done more than a lot of people who sit on their backsides and do nothing through life. Why shouldn't he lead a comfortable life? There's nothing wrong with that. We get into the whole energy of money and abundance and spirituality. And a lot of people still have this feeling or energy within them, sometimes hardwired into their DNA, that to be spiritual means that you have to be have nothing. And this is going back to days of old, where we would have taken vows of poverty, of obedience, of chastity, and so on. So here is a man who is rich in terms of the standards of the world, but is also rich in terms of wisdom. Everything that he was reading through the flight, not that I was trying to pay too much attention, but these were really, top-notch, intelligent books and newspapers and articles and all of that. Also, the other thing about the spiritual male warrior, do you remember when was Live Aid? 1982, 3? Can't remember, to be perfectly honest with you. Almost sort of feeling a Princess Di link with meeting Bob as well, because of course she famously went to Live Aid and loved all of the 80s genre of music. A week later, I'm sat right next to Bob Geldolf. But the point is, the spiritual male warrior also has this quite sort of ballsy attitude, basically. Do you remember the scene in Live Aid where Bob got really angry on camera, and basically people were just sitting back and enjoying the music, enjoying the spectacle, and there was this moment where they flashed up the amount of money that had been raised, and he got incensed because he didn't feel that people were dipping into their pockets deep enough. And he said, excuse the language, he said, "Get your fucking money out." And there was this raw fury from him. And I remembered that also about the warrior energy, that if you can use anger in a positive way to get people out of the lull that they're in, the apathy that they're in, that is okay as well. He had a very he just had a very beautiful energy. I was really struck by it. It stayed with me for a long time. His energy and his aura felt really, really pure and high vibrational. And I definitely benefited from sitting beside it. No doubt about that whatsoever. I also feel that what he was telepathically communicating, or just energetically I was picking up from his field, from being in his presence, if we look at him as being an example of male spiritual warrior, is he was saying, be who you are, be who you are. And I think he models that perfectly. There isn't anybody else that basically looks like him, sounds like him, has lived his life. You could say that about all of us, of course. But just the whole way he conducts himself, he's got this great big mop of hair on his head, and it does look like a big mop of hair, to be honest. He's is a very unique style. He doesn't give a damn, that's the energy that comes across, but he's here to do something in this lifetime with a strident, what I would call red energy. Interesting that I've put on the red today as well. And he's here to make a difference, and is doing so. So that was just something which was a gift, actually, I'm hearing, for me, and for everybody else on that plane, actually, as well. That was fantastic. Okay, next point. Let's just move on. This is all sorts of different subjects. These are just my thoughts that have been coming through my head over the last couple of days. I'm now going to turn to a little bit of feedback with regard to New York and being in Brooklyn, because I'd only been to America once before, which I'd been to Virginia 2 years ago. Never done the Florida thing, never done the California thing, any of it really. But Metatron had always been very insistent that we go to New York this November. And it literally was a case of like putting a pin in the map and saying, okay, well, where do we go in New York? Because I've got no idea. And we ended up in Brooklyn. And we ended up actually in 2 places in Brooklyn. And I talked about that on my last video. But where we eventually ended up, and where we ended up doing what we call the masterclass, was very close to the Brooklyn Bridge. And literally the night before the class, on the 10th, awake at some ungodly hour again, having been woken up by Metatron. And it was like this light bulb moment. I suddenly thought, oh my God, we're here beside Brooklyn Bridge. How many times have I used the analogy of the bridge in my work with Metatron? Many, many, many times. Those of you that have done level 1 with me, level 2 with me, you'll hear me talk about it all the time. And I'm sure I've talked about the bridge analogy a lot on my videos over the last couple of years. The bridge is the thing that takes you from one state of being to another state of being. From place A to place B, and Metatron is the one that walks you across that bridge, okay? Here we are beside one of the most iconic bridges in the world, the history of which is quite interesting if you look up the Brooklyn Bridge. And it all just suddenly started to make sense. Also, those of you that came to Brooklyn, or even those of you that didn't, I know that we did a lot of amazing work, and I'll talk about that in a moment, on that particular workshop. So many breakthrough moments, just huge, huge breakthroughs. And with the bridge in the background, somehow taking energy, flowing it back and forth across the river, the Hudson River, across water, that water taking it into other parts of USA and eventually out into the wider world to the sea. Get back, and it's like my eyes are suddenly opened. I'm hearing stories about Brooklyn Bridge. Did you realise, for example, that the biggest drugs baron, I think probably in the world, El Chapo, his trial is currently taking place in New York. Every day that he's in trial, he is going across that bridge. Now, I'm almost seeing what Metatron is showing me is just one word lighting up that bridge: karma, okay? Karma. I'm wondering, those of you that are watching me close to Brooklyn and who are invested in the energy of what we're trying to do here, I think there's some healing work to be done there, because if you think about the damage that drugs have done to our world and continue to do so, very aware that just taking out one man, even though he might be one of the biggest players in the game, there's always going to be somebody else that comes into his place. But this is hugely symbolic. He is there on trial at the moment. It's a very dangerous trial in terms of, actually what I'm being told is we need to be sending protection to those that are trying to bring justice to this situation. That would include the whole judiciary, the whole building also where this man is going to be tried, the bridge itself, the jurors that are going to be on the thing, and for justice to be done. I'm seeing the scales of justice in my mind. But the fact that he's going over that bridge, what can we do with that, Metatron? Let me just grab my spray. Let me bring in Archangel Uriel, actually. And I'm going to bring in Archangel Uriel because Uriel is linked into legal matters. So I'm just going to ask about this. Just seems very amazing synchronicity that we've just done this big work with Metatron at Brooklyn Bridge, and within a week there is just this huge trial going on, and it's going to be carrying on for some time. So let's just ask Metatron and Uriel. Let's just turn to Uriel. Is there anything else to be said here with this? Why is it being highlighted, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, Uriel is talking about addictions, and if you think about what this man represents, he represents many different things. He represents darkness within our midst, absolutely. And we can feel very insignificant up against a big drugs baron like that. You know, what the hell can we do to help bring peace to our world, to stem the never-ending rise of the demand for narcotic drugs, etc., and for the people that make money off the back of other people's misery. What the hell can we do to try and reduce that? I'm being shown almost like a great big mountain of cocaine or heroin. How can we reduce the demand for that? Because people like him at the end of the day are only there because they are feeding a demand. You know, they are just producing the supply of it. So, not excusing him, but that's the truth of it. And what Uriel is asking is that where we can make a difference is to look at our own individual addictions. Now, maybe there are some people watching me who are addicted to hard drugs, and if there are, sending you love and the help and the support that you need. But equally, most of us probably watching aren't, but we will be addicted to different things in different ways. And Uriel is asking what we can do to help reduce what I'm being shown here is this great big mountain of drugs, you know, the supply, the never-ending supply that somebody like El Chapo just feeds, is we can start, again, all of it comes back to us, starting with ourselves. What are we addicted to? And the need to be very brutal about that, you know, whether it's overeating, over drinking, whether it's smoking, whether it's, do you know, there's a lady that I don't know her, I just know her in terms of she's somebody I see running around the streets of Bournemouth, and she's addicted to exercise. And it's one of those things you can laugh at and say, oh, imagine being addicted to exercise. She looks, you know, every time I see her, I try and send her healing, because I've known her 5 years. I've only known her through going to a couple of sports clubs. I've never even spoken to the lady. 5-10 years ago, longer than 5 years, 10 years, I remember seeing her and thinking, wow, look at her. She's got the most extraordinary body. You know, I'd love to look like that. You know, wow. 10 years on, she can't stop exercising. She's skin and bone. And she's probably my age and looks 30 years older, because there's just no body fat. She's completely and utterly addicted to it. So again, addiction comes in many different guises. It's when anything is out of balance in our life. And I feel as though we're being given an opportunity here, not even this month, this time period, I want to say, to really look at that. And to be able to do that, we've got to be very compassionate with ourselves and look at the root of why we're doing whatever we're doing. So addiction is a huge thing. In terms of colours that can help with that, it's the oranges in particular, which helps with addiction generally. Gold is also a colour that helps heal addiction. And it's to do with the solar plexus. It's to do with that void, that God-shaped hole that we have within the centre of our being from time to time, or maybe all of the time, which makes us feel as though we need to fill that with something else, okay, with some other activity or with some other substance to make us feel whole. Where really, if we can feel whole in terms of the solar plexus and the whole of our being filled with divinity and our I am presence, then that goes a long way to solving the problem. It's not a quick fix, any addict will tell you that, but it's something to at least acknowledge maybe that there's an issue that you need to be looking at, and then taking steps to remedy that. And there will be many different avenues to explore with that. I'm not trying to sit here and say it's all down to holding a crystal or spraying a spray. These things can help, but so can many other things. Reaching out to friends, counselling, getting out in nature, getting specialist professional help. The list goes on and on and on. But the first thing is acknowledging there is a problem, okay? So again, with El Chapo, going back to him, going back and forth across Brooklyn Bridge, where we know the Metatron energy has just been flowing back and forth non-stop over the last week or so, and now is going to keep continuing because it's never going to go away. I just feel as though we just have to now let go, give it up to the highest powers, let this man come to justice, and let's just ask for healing for the world in terms of the drugs problem, which at the moment seems completely and utterly insurmountable. But one of the things we learned from the 1111 portal, which Metatron brought through, was this 1111 portal, this gateway, was about what you feel is completely and utterly impossible is possible. So we can take that into our personal lives, thinking about issues that we just feel are never going to be solved, and starting to realise that miracles can happen. And we can also take it to the collective as well, okay? All right. So yes, I felt, going on now about the 1111 gateway, I felt it was three-pronged, and I said this within the workshop. I felt that it was to do with the divine masculine awakening, and I have just had such proof of that in my own life, literally since that day. I am being contacted by men who are, when I say offering their services, I mean that in terms of services you would want, okay? So I'm talking about, I'm being serious here, I'm talking about spiritual men coming forward who are offering something. So as an example, a couple of musicians have contacted me, going to be doing some work hopefully with music and Metatron next year, which is quite exciting. I've been contacted by a medium, a male medium, Jonathan. If you're watching this, I think you're called Jonathan. Sorry, I haven't got back to you yet, but I will do. Thank you. I have, during the 1111 workshop itself, had a couple of men there. Great to see them. Hello, I expect they're watching this video. One of them, Bill, said he was going to write me a testimonial, because he came up to me, he said, why aren't more men here? He said, this is great. So thank you, Bill. I'm going to hold you to writing that testimonial, okay? Had another guy who came to the meet and greet, and I remember you saying you'd been on your path since 1985, or turning up to events like mine since 1985, walking the path. I remember you so clearly. Again, lots of love to you. But there've been so many emails coming in, lots of people resonating with what I last said about healing the war wound. I'll talk about that in a moment. But this surge, definitely, if you could see the number of men that are awakening, it is truly mind-blowing, and that is going to change the world. It's really, really exciting. So that's great. So that was one part of the 1111, the awakening of the divine masculine, you know, really stirring some into action. The other one was the portal itself, which is always there on 1111, which is always to do with upgrade and expansion, and it is just to do with walking through it. Any of you that just observed it, you know, you didn't have to have been at my workshop, just observed it, that maybe held some sort of ceremonial thing yourself, and I know a lot of you did because you've sent photographs in to me, or just met, or just prayed, or meditated on that day, or just asked yourself to be able to walk through it. It will have happened, okay? And upgrade has happened, and there's a lot of people at the moment who are feeling quite ungrounded as a result of it, okay? Because it was a big one. It was a big one to integrate. At this point, let's just bring the earth elemental in, actually. Okay, so let's just put that up to the camera. The Metatron earth elemental. Feeling as though a lot of people still maybe are a little bit ungrounded. So let's just correct that. And let's just spray the earth. And yes, I'm spraying it above my head, even though my feet obviously are not there. Because the thing is, it's intelligent energy, it's just going to flow down. I'm being too lazy to bend down, but if you want to, you can spray your feet as well. Let's just link into Mother Earth at the moment, for a moment. Put your feet down on the floor, and let's just acknowledge where we are now, okay? The other side of it, end of November. I'm going to be walking into December soon, and I'm being shown a never-ending path, to be perfectly honest, because I think I said that 1111 linked to the solstices of the summer. Well, what I'm being shown now is that 1111 links now to the Christmas period and New Year period, which is always to do with upgrade as well, and the winter solstice as well. So it's really important that you just take moments every day just to connect to literally what day it is, where you are, the earth beneath your feet, and just own it. Be present in it. Particularly because the year has flown by and is going to carry on flying by. I'm being quite serious actually in terms of what day is it. If you're a bit like me, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there, it's like sometimes I'm not even aware what date it is. Be aware of the date. Not because I'm trying to link us into linear time, just because it's literally like a staging post. We're on this path which is accelerating all the time, and we have to find our feet, okay? Okay. Just gonna have some water. I've written a note here, just talking about time having sped by this year. I've written 2018 has been good too. And what I mean by that is the fact that I've noticed over the last few years that we get to the end of a year, and we're getting towards the end of a year now, and there seems to be this collective thing that kicks in, which is sort of like, oh, I can't wait for this year to be over. Next year's going to be better. Have you been guilty of saying that? I've been guilty of saying that some years. It's like writing off a whole year. Well, for a start, we've still got 6 weeks or so of this year, which are important, are very important actually, and you need to be fully present in. And if you've just written them off before they've even begun, you're not going to be standing in mastery. But I also think it's really important that even though this year has been a bumpy one and a difficult one and a challenging one, I also feel it's been a very good one in a lot of ways. I can look back on my year and see some really amazing things that have happened, and places I've been to and people I've met and all the rest of it. But even in the challenging, difficult bits, there's been such growth and learning. And that's the part that Metatron really wants you to be focusing in on. Not writing the year off, not just putting it, wanting to erase it, to look back at what has been good about this year. Because we talk about gratitude as being one of the most important energies that we can hold. It really helps raise our vibration very, very quickly if we step into gratitude. And we seem to be able to do it we seem to box it in. That's what I've observed. We box it in. So as an example, I might go to bed at night. I do go to bed at night, and most nights, if I'm able to before going to sleep, I will actually thank God for the food I've had, the roof over my head, my warm bed, the fact my children are safe, all the rest of it. I'll do a checklist. I'm grateful for it. It's important to be grateful for it. But yet, when it comes bigger than that, and it becomes like a whole year, it's really easy just to think, oh yeah, it's been a bit of a bad one this year. No, Metatron's saying, don't do that. Please don't do that. There is good within every single year. Please take a moment to look back and think about what that is. Make a note of it and be grateful, okay? Including for what you've learned, okay? Remember the whole duality thing playing out. The third aspect of the 1111 portal was forgiveness. There were 2 moments within the workshop which were extraordinary, and I'm not going to name names because it was very personal to the individuals that were doing the work. But there was one where we had a lady who has a living relative who survived concentration camps in World War II, standing, hugging, holding hands with another lady who had German ancestry and who knows that her relatives were active within the war. I think at that moment, every single person in the room was in tears. It was so special. I held it together because I had to, but I felt it. And why it was so beautiful was that here we had the next generation, both having turned up to an event such as that, which is about embodying spiritual mastery, walking the talk, basically, walking the talk, the ascension path, able to build bridges Again, build bridges. It was about building bridges. And also building bridges to help heal the ancestors as well. And there's a lady in the room, Karen, who said to me at the moment when we had this extraordinary meeting of the two and the healing that took place, she said the whole room was just filled with angelic light and beings, congratulating, encouraging. It was being done for so many other people, and it was being done on the day of armistice, 100 years on. It was powerful. My God, it was powerful. And then we had another story, which is quite personal, so I'm not going to share the full details, but it was linked into race hate, basically. And somebody whose lineage had been on one side, and the other person had been on the other side. So, somebody who carried racism, I guess, within the family line, and somebody else who'd been a victim of that racism coming together, standing. I can't remember where they stood, but anyway, there was just this beautiful union. Again, the bridge, the healing. I loved the fact that at New York, people turned up of different ethnicities, from different cultures, from different faiths. We had people there who were Buddhists. We had people there who were Jews. We had people there who were from a Christian upbringing. We had people there who didn't have any, weren't affiliated with any denomination, spiritual. Well, I don't know, what do we call ourselves? Oh, it was so beautiful. There were so many bridges being built, mended, healed. It was extraordinary. So, yeah, it was special. So thank you. Thank you, New York. Thank you, Brooklyn. Thank you for all the people that came. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I will be back at some point. Of course I will be back at some point. Right, next point. Oh yeah, I will just finishing off on USA. I noticed that a week after we left, it snowed. It snowed quite heavily, I think. Brooklyn Bridge was covered in snow. Well, what is snow? Snow is purification. So it's almost like Metatron just finishing off the job. Probably difficult for those of you that had to walk across the bridge or drive across the bridge, sludge, but hey ho, snow is linked into purification. Right, my next point that I want to make is I'm going to cover the fires. I'm going to do that at the end. There's only a couple more points I wanted to make on this particular video. UK. I've got to mention the UK because we're in chaos. We are in chaos. I actually thought that by the time I made this video, we'd have a new Prime Minister, because that's the way it was looking a couple of days ago. Not saying that's what I particularly want, but that's the way it was looking. And she's still there at the moment, Teresa May. Whether she survives this week, I don't know. Brexit is in chaos, to be perfectly honest. What do I want to say, though, about Brexit and about the UK situation? I'll tell you one thing that came to me this week, which is a bit like Trump and America, and Brexit and the UK, and I'm sure there are lots of other examples around the world. For me, the Brexit thing, it's like it's revealing layers of shadow. And it should be revealing layers of shadow to anybody in the UK, whichever side of the debate you're on, because it's going to be pretty impossible. It would have been pretty impossible to have not have been triggered to some degree if you are invested or at least interested in it. And if you're not interested or invested in it, it's sort of like, well, where are you? Because this is it's really important in terms of the direction for this country, for future generations. And what I found last week is that I was really triggered by a character that is emerging on the UK political stage. And yes, okay, I'll name him because there's no reason not to. I'm not going to say anything about him. I can't remember what his first name is. Rees-Mogg. What's his first name? Anyway, it doesn't matter what his first name is. People will know him. Some of you watching may love him, so that's fine, because you might be triggered by people on the other side of the debate. This is the whole thing. But the point is, I knew I was being triggered, okay? And I still am being triggered. But in a way, it's like, well, thank you, Spirit. That's something else for me to work on then. Why is he triggering you so? What's that all about? There was a moment last week where he came on the news, and I said to my husband, half joking, I said, that's it. I said, if he gets in, I'm having to move out of the country. Of course, I wouldn't do that. But in that moment, I thought, hold on, Amanda, what is that all about? Why are you being triggered so much by this one person? He's only representing something within yourself that needs to be healed. Otherwise, he wouldn't be triggering you, okay? So again, see these people that are emerging on the stage in different countries around the world. Let's take it away from the UK and Brexit now, as why are they triggering you so? They're triggering you because you've got something to heal, okay? So that's all very interesting. I am worried about the UK though, I have to be honest, and I will try and do another reading at some point quite soon, because the energy here is the energy's heavy with regard to all of this. One thing that came to me last week when I was just thinking about it was, there's a saying that what USA has, the UK gets, I can't remember whether it's 1-2 years later, and I feel as though a lot of the division and the separation that's been going on in America, it's almost like I'm feeling it's coming across the Atlantic, and it's in our face now. We've got our own moment of truth in terms of how do you deal with that, you know? How do you deal with people who have completely conflicting views to you, who might be your family, your friends, your partners, and still be able to maintain the peace? So there's rich learning there. I think I might just pull one card. Let's just get one card out. Literally one card for Brexit, or where we're at. UK, let's just say UK, where the UK is at the moment. I've really missed this deck. I didn't take it with me to Canada because it's quite a heavy deck, but it's the Japardize tarot deck. Let's just give it a quick shuffle. Let's just, in fact, I am going to ask about Brexit. I'm just going to ask one thing, one card, one message into Brexit. I know I did do that other video, didn't I, on it? But one thing I will say about 5D energy is that things change the whole time. It's very hard to get a handle and do a video and just be like, well, you know, I said this 6 months ago, so that's what's going to happen. And that's not a cop-out, it's the truth. Look at your own lives. You know, look at how, well, the Empress has just flown out of the deck. Interesting. I sort of knew that was going to happen. As I was shuffling these cards, I thought, I bet that's going to happen. And I'm just seeing where I've just stopped. Let's stop there then. So I asked about Brexit. We've got the Tower. Pretty self-explanatory. The Tower is the falling away of everything, you know, that we currently know. Old structures. It could be government. It could just be, you could read that in many, many different ways, to be perfectly honest. The Empress came upside down. That could be Teresa May because she's female. Might not be. Where was the other card? The other card was the Two of Tides. Pretty sure the Two of Tides is the Two of Cups within this deck. Wolves, though. Wolves is what I'm being shown there. Although it's the Two of Cups, you know me, I read the cards intuitively. I'm just being drawn to the fact it's two wolves. And we've got the Tower and we've got the Empress upside down. So, in a way, it's not saying anything we probably don't already know, because we know that the, let's call them wolves, are circling. Her enemies are circling. She is upside down all over the place, trying to hold it all together. But then we've got the energy of the Tower coming in. So yeah, I might look at that on another video because there's a lot to say. But there are many lessons for us as spiritual people. And hey, you know, it's all about looking at your stuff and owning it. All of us, myself included. Last point. Fires in California. The first thing is to say, I'll take this off now, I'm getting hot now, I'm talking about fire. the first thing is to say is obviously sending huge love out to anybody that has been affected by those fires. I was aware that they were happening when I was in America, and it seems to be one of these stories that's just kept on growing, doesn't it? And the number of people that they're now saying may have died in it is going into the thousands. There are many theories out there, particularly on the internet. Just take some water at this point. There are many theories out there on the internet. There are obviously the fact that it's natural, the fact that maybe it's linked to climate change, or the fact that it's somehow been, it's targeted and deliberate direct energy weapons, DEWs as they're called. So that's DEWs, D-E-W, direct energy weapons. Now, my guidance on this and what I instinctively felt when I first heard about it, and my feeling hasn't particularly changed, is that I feel this ties into two topics. This is going to be quite hard to hear for some people. Okay, it's going to be quite hard to hear, so apologies, but I'm just going to say it as it is. That's the Metatron energy. It's, you know, blunt sometimes. Metatron is tying it into two things. One is earth changes. I did a video a while back where there was guidance that came through which showed the planet divided. Obviously it's divided already into northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, and obviously the northern hemisphere is colder and the southern hemisphere is hotter. Everybody knows that. But it's as though the distinction between the two was going to become greater and greater and greater. And he talked about a freeze in the north and extreme temperatures of heat in the south. So it's almost as though what is already in place, i.e. the difference between cool and warm, is going to become much greater. It's going to be extreme cold and extreme heat. And I am being told, this is where, you know, I hate to be the one to deliver the messages, what I'm being told is that this is going to almost become the new norm. There are going to be certain parts of the world, and in particular parts of America I'm being shown, that are going to become more uninhabitable. And this links into the second point, which is even more contentious, but again I'm just going to spit it out. It links into what I've already said on previous videos, linking into migration, okay? And I've said this, I've said that there are going to be waves of migration within countries, people having to move from different parts of countries to other parts to find safety and shelter. I am not being shown a time frame. I don't believe it's within the next few weeks. But I'm feeling as though we're starting to see the beginnings of it, and I'm not seeing it as this being an isolated incident. Let's put it that way, and I'm seeing it as something that will happen again, and there will come a moment where certain people in certain areas will have to look at balance up. Do we want to stay living in certain parts of the world, or do we need to move? And I'm seeing waves of people migrating within countries and also between countries. Okay, so then we get into the whole immigration thing as well. And definitely the climate and the temperature of the earth being one very important factor that is, excuse the pun, fueling that movement, okay? It's not a pleasant message to deliver. I'm not trying to scaremonger, but it's what I instinctively felt and what I still feel, and my guidance from Metatron has been that, and he hasn't changed or isn't giving me an awful lot more, probably because he's very much, he gives things to people on a need-to-know basis. The other thing I've written down here, it's a given, but it needs to be said again and again and again, is that from a spiritual, higher self perspective, these events are to bring about an increase in compassion and unity consciousness amongst everybody. And I think what the fires are also showing is there is no distinction between rich or poor. You know, they've happened in a particularly wealthy suburb or towns, you know, in California, but equally they can strike in areas of complete destitution, not necessarily fire, but we can see other earth events that happen. I'm being drawn east now, you know, to places in Nepal or India, not Nepal, India, where they're devastating earthquakes and things like that. People who are just already living in extreme poverty and ruins, and then get another wave of earth-related change flung at them. So it's like the poor and the rich. It reduces everybody to the same level playing field. And at that level playing field, we finally, over time, start to fully understand that we are one and that we have to come together as one. And there is no other way. But I think this is something that happens over years, certainly not weeks or months. So we will be given warning. But equally, it's also what I'm hearing, a test isn't the right word, but it's an opportunity, he's saying, for people living in affected areas to be able to go into their truth in terms of, does this feel safe anymore to live in particular parts of the world? And different people will make different decisions on that at different times, linked into what is right for them. So yeah, it's a difficult message to deliver that. It's probably a difficult message to hear for some people living in that part of the world, but it is what I'm feeling and getting. Now, I was going to spray the fire elemental, and you might think, well, why is she spraying that when you're talking about fires being out of control? But I know something wanted to come through with this spray, and I'll tell you why. The fire elemental spray has been in the Metatron range for a number of years, okay? And a lot of you know it, buy it, enjoy it. And it's there to help create the fire energy within ourselves. So fire energy is linked to the masculine, it's linked to motivation, being dynamic, courage, strength, you know, moving past fear, all of that. But it is related to the fire elemental. And a few things to say on this. The first observation on this, which I'm still a bit in awe of actually, is that these sprays are handmade. I am helped now by a lady in Bristol. Some of you have met and know Tracy. But I still make the crystal essences that go into them. So I make those here in Bournemouth. And then they get sent to Tracy and she adds them into what she's making, okay? So it's like my energy is still within the sprays, and I enjoy making the crystal essences. And because we've been in the USA, there's loads of them to make, and I spent a lot of last week making them, and I've got 3 up there on the balcony, brewing now, as it were. I have tried 3 times since I got back to make the fire essence, the crystal essence that goes into the fire elemental spray. And each time it's failed. Well, no, failed is a big word. I'm not happy with it. And I know it hasn't energized in the way that it's meant to. One way that you can see that it's working, you know, that the waters that the crystals are in, the waters are being infused with the crystals, is that the water starts to bubble. You can literally see the energy in it. You can see the energy, it bubbles up. Each time I've tried to make the fire essence, the water is completely and utterly flat. It actually looks dead, okay? And these are the same crystals that I've been using for years making this spray. So one, yes, there's probably a new crystal to go in it. I'll hold off. I already know what that is. But B, it's telling me something. Because at the end of the day, these reflect, they can't not reflect what that element is doing in the world at the moment. These smell nice, look nice, all the rest of it. You use them in healing, but they are energy products. They are energy products. They reflect the energy of what they represent. This represents the energy of fire. You look around the world and you see fire out of control at the moment in a very big way in the USA. It's almost as though what this fire energy is saying by not activating up there on my balcony is it's saying we can't inflame it anymore. What we're needing to do is dampen down the flames. We're needing to dampen down the flames. And also being reminded that fire has a life all of its own. From the first spark to trying to create it, you know, via rubbing stones together or lighting a match, it has a life. And anybody that's built a campfire will know that. I sat round a beautiful campfire in Canada and I saw it. We lit it, you know, blowing into it, lots of smoke. Eventually the flame comes, then the flame is really alive, then it all starts to die down again, and then you get to the ashes stage. It's almost as though what this is doing is it's saying, okay, those of you that have got these at the moment in your homes, what it's doing is it's trying to do that. It's trying to dampen down the flames collectively. Plus, what is also going on in the collective is we have this uprising of fire energy where people are very aggressive and in your face. You know, I mean, again, go back to social media. You see it the whole time. People don't like something you say, they're in your face straight away. You know, I'm going to tell you you're wrong and you're this and you're that. There's no space to like stand back, breathe, center, hold yourself, you know, quieten it down, own it. None of that. So I just find it absolutely fascinating from a colour therapy perspective and an energetic perspective, because over and above anything that I am, I was a colour therapist first, and I've always been linked into colours as energy. These are energy. Let's spray it now. Let's just see what it has to say. The fact that it's not activating up there in my balcony, I know what's happening. It's trying to just calm everything down. In fact, in many ways, I've got one up there at the moment. I'm thinking, actually, maybe there is nothing wrong with it. Maybe that needs to actually go now into the new batch of fire energy sprays, because then it has a softer, more muted energy, which is just as much a part of the fire cycle as the raging inferno. Does that make sense? I feel like I've just talked it through with you, like you're all old friends, which you are. And it's like suddenly I'm thinking, oh, yeah, of course. All right, let's spray fire. Let's see what message we get. Fire. I'm hearing a phrase over and over in my mind. To be consumed or to consume. The word consume and the word consumption is coming through strongly. Consume, Metatron is talking about the energy that we consume. The energy that we consume. What do we feed ourselves with? I'm not talking about food here, although that would come into it. He's talking about energy that we consume. I'm being shown the dragon. I mean, this is the dragon energy. The dragon breathes fire. The dragon also has to consume something to be able to breathe fire in the first place, okay? Metatron is saying that we are being fed a diet. Talking here about what we're reading, what we're looking at, what we're listening to. And it's toxic. And because we're consuming it, we are becoming it. And the level of triggering, aggression, violence, unease, dis-ease is increasing. I didn't watch hardly any TV when I was in America, but on the first night I was there, I was in a hotel room on my own. I did turn it on, and I had the misfortune of catching some of the news. And I would describe it as, and this isn't my words, I've heard other people describe it such. I'm not just singling out American news, probably it would be true of other news around the world as well, other countries. Doom porn. Doom porn. That's what it felt like. And you watch it and you take it all in. You're like we're like the greedy dragon. We take it all in. And if you fed that, and if you ingest that, and social media is a place that it happens as well. What's that saying? You are what you eat. It consumes you. So we have to change that. Because fire, when it's out of balance in our world, in the same way that when water is out of balance in our world, it reflects something. It reflects something that is, it reflects us, basically, is what I'm trying to say. The work of Dr. Masaru Emoto showed that with water. He always maintained, and I believe this to be true, that if you look at any part of the world where maybe there's drought or flood, you look at the consciousness of the people, and there will be something within the emotions there that reflect what's happening with water there. Because water is emotion. It's the same with fire. And at the moment, there are some fire when it's out of control is this red energy that has got out of balance. So it comes back to us. It all starts from us. What are you consuming? Who are you listening to? Are you feeding that red energy within you? Or are you looking at more peaceful sources? Nature is the best one that you can go to. Or even if you have consumed something hateful, listened to some hateful words or read some horrible post on Facebook or somebody spewing on about this, that or whatever, or arguing, heal it within yourself. Don't add to it. Don't add to the bonfire of vanities is what I'm hearing Metatron say. Because it's all ego. That's what we're seeing the whole time with social media. It's all ego. Don't feed the bonfire of the vanities. Step away from it. It's the main reason why I'm removing hateful comments from my channel. Not because I've got some huge ego and I don't want to be challenged. It's just because I want it to be a portal of light. I want it to be a portal of love. I want people to come here and see that. Not just get into some horrible whole debate about XYZ and lower the whole thing. Feed yourself with light and hope and love and be that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Metatron. I'm going to leave it there, I think. I'm just going to look at my notes and see if there's anything else that I haven't mentioned. I think that was more or less my catch-up video. Over this week, I will do some other videos and I'm going to look at, I'll do a general read on where are we with the energy. But I've also got a few notes down. I'd like to do a video where I just look at some specific countries as well. And I've written down South Africa, Brazil, Australia. They're the top 3 at the moment that are coming through. As I think it'd be nice to pull some cards for you from those countries and see what's going on. I'll also have the UK, of course, because we need all the help we can get at the moment over here. So again, taking the advice of what Metatron has just said to us here in the UK, myself included, don't consume and feed yourself with all of the paranoia, aggression, media that is out there at the moment from either side of the debate. Try to just stay in love, you know. Try to also trust that Spirit does have the highest vision of what's intended. And be peace. Be peace. Not just be at peace, be peace. Maybe it'd be nice to end with that. Let's do that. Go and grab the peace spray. Assuming I've got it. Yes, I have. Okay. Sapphire peace. Let's just breathe in peace. And breathe out peace. Breathe in peace. And breathe out peace. Breathe in peace. And breathe out peace. Surrounding the world with peace. Surrounding our friends with peace. Surrounding our enemies with peace. Being peace. Take that all the way through your body to your feet. Into the earth. She needs that. She needs to be fed with that. Too many are feeding her with the opposite. Feed the earth with peace. Can you feel that? Whoa. Whoa. That's just like stop you in your tracks. Peace is all there is. Amidst all the chaos, find and hold the peace. Much love to everyone. I'll be back soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.